Welcome to the JAMODI podcast. We are all surrounded by amazing coaches and leaders. So let's get an inside look at not just what they do, but how they do what they do. After all, becoming the best versions of ourselves is JAMODI, just a matter of doing it. Coaches, the JAMODI podcast is powered by Biology. What's your BSA score? The Biology Skills Assessment is the only verified skills metric endorsed by the NAIA, NJCAA, and a growing number of NCAA coaches to discover and develop the best talent for your team. This 4-minute, 40-shot test can be taken free today on the Biology mobile app. Elevate your game. You know, you've been able to play, obviously your dad was a great coach, and then you've been able to play for so many in college and then probably against. What are some characteristics that you see in great leaders?
You know, I think for me, as I've gotten older and kind of progressed and been able to, branch out and learn from others and pick up on some things. I think there's multiple characteristics that stick out. One is, and it's going to sound cliche-ish, but it seems like great leaders are individuals who are kind of constant learners, who are trying to improve as coaches, as people, who will step outside themselves and be uncomfortable and dabble into areas that are different to them, and are willing to listen and apply different aspects of from different professions into what you do. I think I also think me and as coaches, as a group of coaches, I'm really close with, and we are on a text thread and we talk all the time. But one of the things we kind of talked about is the importance of taking your job serious, but not yourself. And I think that's really important, man. I think as a player, we stress that to our guys, but I think as a person, but as a leader, if you take yourself too serious, it's really hard to grow. And if you don't take your job serious, you're not going to dabble into different avenues to try to learn and try to improve and try to get better at what you do. And so I think there's a certain humility that comes with that, and you have to be willing to to accept and to know that what we're doing again is fun, but it's a job, but it's not. It's really not that important, and you got to know that. You know what I mean? Like you got to take it. You got to take what you're doing serious. You got to come into work. You got to put the time in. You can't skip steps. All the stuff that as a player you got to apply to as a coach. But you can't be somebody who's stubborn and unwilling to adjust, adapt, or change, or try to grow from who you are. If I'm the same person now that I was, if I'm 45, if I'm the same person I was at 35, that's pretty disappointing. And if I'm the same person 10 years from now, that's even more upsetting. So I think great leaders are readers. I think they're people who, again, will read, obviously sports, leadership type stuff, but also will just read. We'll read fiction, nonfiction. I just think there's a lot that if you can challenge yourself and stimulate yourself, I think you can do nothing but grow. And if you grow, I think you got an opportunity to be better at whatever it is you're doing.
What do you like to read? Anything you're into right now, or that you just finished?
I kind of bounce around. I've read kind of fiction, nonfiction. I finished. There was a book that was written on the Lakers, the three-peat kind of Kobe Shaq years, which was fascinating, and kind of provided some insight that didn't realize some of the stuff that was happening during that time. And then I like to like Ryan Holiday is one that James Clear, guys like that who again, I at some point I think you can read. Like I like to read to grow as a leader, but then I just can't stay in that genre of nonfiction for too long. I have to change it up and have variety, kind of like with most things. I whether you're doing a workout, whatever it is, you have to kind of change it up or you're going to get stale. So I try to go back and forth between the two, between reading, fiction stuff and nonfiction.
That's a really good point earlier about not taking yourself too seriously. But at the same time, if we're not taking our job seriously or our programs, our players are going to feel that. And excellence won't be obtained. And because that is the goal, not perfection, but excellence. I think younger coaches, and I'm really just speaking from experience, we come out thinking, I know a lot about this. I can really do this. And I've got it pretty much figured out, so that we don't have a growth mindset. We're pretty fixed. And then for most of us, we get our tail whipped for a few years. Hopefully we don't lose our job, but we have multiple losing seasons and we're just frustrated. And then we learn that lesson. You know what? I don't have this all figured out. What advice do you have for younger coaches so they can maybe sidestep that landmine of taking themselves too seriously right off the bat and forgetting their why a little bit?
Yeah, I think you have to remove outcome from the definition from defining you as a coach. And that sounds really simple, but it's difficult. I think, we can't help it as competitors. You can't help but at the end of a game have a certain feeling whether you win or lose. That one's going to take you to high, the other's going to take you to a really low place. But I think managing that and understanding that it doesn't matter. Like, it does, but at the end of the day, what matters is what does your team look like? Are they bought in? Are they engaged? Are they playing hard? Are they selfless? Are they about each other? Like, you can walk into a gym and hopefully you can see what a program's about pretty quickly into whether it's how they're warming up, how they're acting on the bench, how they're competing during adverse times, like all that stuff. And to me, this past year we were 8-4 to start the season, and and to the average person, to people maybe within our department or people on campus, we were off to a great start. You guys are playing well, and we were not good. Like, we were not a good team. We were not guarding the ball. We were not blocking out. We were not, we had a lot of flaws that weren't being exposed. And then we went on a spell where we lost 10 games in a row. And all of them, not all of them, 6 of them were one possession games. They were free throw games. They were little things. But through that process, it was terrific because it gave us a chance to grow and fix and to see kind of what we needed to do with clear eyes to get better, so that by the end of the season, we gave ourselves a chance in the conference tournament. We were playing our best, and we had a chance to win a game against a really good opponent, and we showed growth. And I think that, process is used a ton, but if you can remove
Jason Garrett wore it out up here, but he was right.
but it is true, and if you can, but the hard part is, that's a book that was really big to me was Ego's the Enemy by Ryan Holiday, because at the time it put some perspective. It made me really think about the idea that that it had to be negative about it, but nobody really cares. It's not that important to other people, and so you got to quit worrying about losses or so much about what you feel like people are thinking of you, and people aren't. It's and if you feel that and you start to put that onto your team, it heightens pressure. And so it's the idea of, man, we're gonna all we're gonna care about is improvement. And if you, hey, you were a Division I Big 12 guard that played at the highest of levels, and making shots is tough. Making threes, whether open, guarded, whatever, is tough. And if you base all of your who you are on just the makes, it's going to be hard. But it's are you doing the steps before to give yourself an opportunity to make it? And if you are, then all you can do is hope it goes in. And that's kind of what we tell our guys. It's man, all we can do is practice, compete, not skip steps, not and focus literally on the practice, the game, and then hope during the game we do what we're supposed to do. Shots go in. and we win. And if we do, great. If we don't, let's see what was good or bad, and let's move on to the next one, and not get caught up. I mean, of course we're going to be upset. Of course we're not going to walk out feeling good about it, and we're not going to. We would never allow that to be a standard. But it's also, I look at it, it's kind of a season's like an experiment, and I think you spend the season dabbling in with what formula works, what you put here, what you put there, and you just continue to fine tune it until you find what works. And hopefully it's sooner than later, but you want to find that so that when it gets to the end of the year, you're playing your best. But you can't do that if you're basing everything on did we win the game, because wins can be so deceiving, and they can make you think something about yourself that you're not, and complacency can creep in, and it just makes it it's dangerous. And so for us, I'm at a point where, for good or bad, it does not impact. It hurts, but I am able to navigate it better at this point, because I'm able to really, really, enjoy the steps of a season, and taking them for what they are.
Coach, that's very Ted Lasso of you to have that mentality, but which I completely agree with you, and I love that shift away from resulting to taking every game for really what it is, not the end of the world, but a learning experience. Have you always been that way, or
No.
is that something like what was kind of the big moment for you where you realized that the path you're on it can't work?
Well, I think honestly, reading that book, Ego is the Enemy, I think it just kind of brought some perspective to me, and allowed it. And I read it during one of our seasons, maybe 6-7 years ago, and it kind of opened me to thinking more just along those lines. And again, if you saw us after a loss, you would. I mean, again, we're miserable. We're not happy. We're not. Nobody on the team said we're not. If we're having an 8-hour bus ride, there's no talking. Like, we're not celebrating it, but it's not bearing us, and we're not. It doesn't keep me up the same way, because, again, I know that there's more to play, and I know that we're just really trying to, we're trying to figure it out, even when we're winning. And we kind of adopted a mantra of like, when we try to recruit to that, like, we try to recruit guys who we feel like will fit in that, with that mindset, and guys that are, as we say, people we want to lose with, as bad as that sounds like, because when you win, everybody's great to be around. Everybody's enjoying it. The meal's good afterward. Like, everything's good. But it's like, no, man, when we have to drive back 8 hours this past year after we lose in Arkansas, who do I want to be on the bus with? Who do I want to stop at that Buc-ee's at 2 a.m. and be around? Like, that is what matters. And I think if you have those people, then you can teach them and you can coach them. And then it's up to you as a coach that's where you got to grow, and you got to learn, and you got to adapt. And it's up to me to spend my downtime trying to get better. So I give those guys an opportunity, because I can't preach process and can't preach steps and then on my own be lazy, or on my own not try to get better, or on my own not try to adapt and grow and stay modern with what we're doing offensively, defensively. Like, if I just get lazy and say process, well, that's a cop out. It's like, no, I gotta invest in my off season. So I'm getting better, and so I'm learning, so I'm progressing. So again, I don't want to be the same person I was 10 years ago. I want to be the same coach. I don't want to fall behind the times of what's happening with the game of basketball. And so, it's not, we're not going to skip steps. So it makes all that kind of work a little bit easier.
Coach, if you don't mind, I'd like to give maybe my experience real quick on kind of learning that, because I'm 5 years younger, but I feel like I did finally get to a point. I'm still trying to get better and better with that type of mentality, but I typically don't like to tell too many of my stories. So if you'll indulge me.
No,
so there's two things that happened to me that helped me realize, one, the path that I was on was destructive. I probably wasn't going to be coaching for very long, and was going to damage relationships with my players. I came from McKinney High School with Wes Watson, where we together worked on this style of pressing and running and gunning and really enjoyed it. And so I brought my first year at Faith, 5A, 5A taps, about a size of a 3A public school. So not the biggest school, but brought this style over. And that team was just the right athletes. They trusted me and skilled. And so 373s the first year. They had never done anything like that. Personally, I had never seen anything like that. And so we started to develop as a program this idea of we are the best shooting program. That's what we hang our hat on. Nothing wrong with that. But the next year, we made 423, but we were 14 and 21. Right. And I felt like this idea of 14 and 21, that doesn't really matter. Like, what's this number? What's this number that we're getting to? But then I started to feel like, I don't know if my players really care about that, but this is who we are. The next year we make 432, and we did have a little bit more success, but it was, here's my moment. It's the spring after that season, and I'm looking at the NFHS records for threes. I'm sitting in my study hall looking that up, and I realized, man, we can qualify for tons of these records, team per game, all this stuff. There's about 8 to 10 that we would. So I printed out all the forms, filled it out, sent it in, and I'm just sitting around there for a month because this is all about me. Right. And this is about the system that I brought here and all the records. Coach, they emailed me back and they said, wow, thank you for sending this in, but because you're a private school, we don't acknowledge that your records. Right. It was like a punch in the gut, this realization of this doesn't matter. Right. Like nobody cares. My players didn't even care. I was the only one doing this. So that was a good moment. And then really working for PGC for 5 years. I mean, the coach that I entered in there, very different than when I left, because you really just, and the whole idea too of just making the big time where you're at, but not taking yourself too seriously. All the reminders that you've already given us, those two things.
Well, we joke all the time, me and Andre Cook, the coach at St. Ed's, we always joke that, like, in our lives, there's like 3 people that care. That, how our wives, just because it kind of puts us in a weird mood. My parents, and that's about it. And like even like my assistant, he's all in, he's invested. But like Coach Cook, we'll talk and if we win, lose, whatever, like he'll be upset for us. I'll be upset, but it doesn't like if he loses, it doesn't change my appetite. I'm having my dinner. I'm having, I'm going to be upset with him for about 15, 20 minutes. And then I move on back to my life. Because as majority of individuals, we don't have enough headspace to think about other people because we're so consumed with ourselves. And that's just a flaw, but it is what it is. And
it's what's right in front of us. Yeah.
It's right in front of us. And so, but as coaches, you get so caught up in scoreboard, you get so caught up in that it just can just bury you because you think all these people are judging you and they're all making this guy's a good coach. And man, we always talk about, if you go, him and I joke about, if you go into a restaurant and you can, if a waiter comes over and they see you're a coach and they ask how you're doing, and one coach says, hey, I was 5 and 25, they're going to kind of go, that kind of give you a look like, oh, it's a tough year, coach. And the other coach, hey, how are you? 25 and 5. Oh, they're celebrating and excited for you. And like, they may have no idea that the 25 and 5 coach was playing a weaker schedule, was playing with guys that were just straight talent. Didn't coach. The 5 and 25 may have had injuries, may have had, eligibility. She could have all kinds of stuff happen, but the layers of it, they don't know. And so it's like the people who know, and that's what matters. Again, and then play, and your players. If your players see you committed to them, to their growth, and that, I think it's easier also to connect to players when they realize that outcomes don't dictate your relationship with them. It frustrates you and it gets you upset, but like if you can truly commit to their growth by being process driven and being, non-outcome driven, and we're about the outcome of you performing and you maxing out for that day and getting the most out of that practice. And I think it allows for you to get through those tougher times a little bit easier with that group. So it's challenging, and I think as a young coach, it's something that you have to navigate and just kind of work through, you know.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for checking out today's episode. Please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your fellow coaches, and find us on social media for what's coming up next on the JAMODI podcast. It's just a matter of doing it.